Episode 4 of Anne Shirley wastes no time and picks up right where episode 3 left off. After the humiliation of being made a spectacle by Mr. Phillips, Anne is on strike from school and refuses to return. Marilla turns to Rachel Lynde for advice, and in a surprising twist, Rachel actually suggests that Marilla let Anne do as she wants. Let Anne cool off, she says, and she may come around on her own. When Marilla returns home, she finds Anne crying on the porch steps, distraught over the idea that one day Diana will grow up, get married, and leave her behind. Anne declares that she already hates the man who will one day steal Diana away from her. Rather than scold her for being overly sentimental, Marilla breaks out in laughter and replies with a line straight out of the book. If you must borrow trouble, for pity's sake, borrow it handier home. It's a humorous moment, but also a bit prophetic given what happens later in this episode. Marilla suggests inviting Diana over for tea, which thrills Anne. Matthew, too. Though he's usually in the periphery of the action and is mostly silent, he quietly is delighted for Anne, as he just wants nothing more than for her to have everything her little heart desires. Marilla clearly wants that kind of happiness for Anne too, except that she's more subdued about it. She does, however, allow herself to smile and respond to Anne's affectionate hugs and kisses instead of keeping her usual distance. That's nice to see. The next day, Diana arrives prepared and ready for tea. They greet each other with formal curtsies, but they end up ruining the effect by giggling together like idiots. What follows next is one of the most beloved and hilarious incidents of the Anne of Green Gables canon, the Raspberry Cordial debacle. Eager to impress, Anne unknowingly serves Diana currant wine instead of raspberry cordial. Diana, delighted with the flavor, gulps down 3 big glasses full of it, becoming dizzy and getting sick. Of course, this scene went by really quick. Unfortunately, this scene did suffer from the breakneck speed that we're going through this entire series. I highly encourage you to read the novel where the 2 girls are so obviously delighted in role-playing as perfect guest and perfect hostess. First, they go out to the orchard to gather apples, and while they snack on them, Diana tells her all the school gossip, down to the pettiest little detail. But just as she starts getting on talking about Gilbert Blythe, Anne ruthlessly cuts her off and suggests that they go to the house to drink some raspberry cordial. Anne looked on the second shelf on the bottom pantry, but there was no bottle of raspberry cordial there. Search revealed it away on the top shelf. Anne put it on a tray and set it on the table with a tumbler. "Now, please help yourself, Diana," she said politely. "I don't believe I'll have any just now. I don't feel as if I wanted any after all those apples." Diana poured herself out a tumblerful, looked at its bright red hue admiringly, and then sipped it daintily. "That's awfully nice raspberry cordial, Anne," she said. "I didn't know raspberry cordial was so nice." "I'm real glad you like it. Take as much as you want. I'm going to run out and stir the fire up. There are so many responsibilities on a person's mind when they're keeping house, isn't there?" When Anne came back from the kitchen, Diana was drinking her second glassful of cordial, and being entreated thereto by Anne, she offered no particular objection to the drinking of a third. The tumblerfuls were generous ones, and the raspberry cordial was certainly very nice. "The nicest I ever drank," said Diana. "It's ever so much nicer than Mrs. Lynde's, although she brags of hers so much. It doesn't taste a bit like hers." Oddly enough, here in the anime, Diana says it's better than her mother's cordial, which was a strange change from the book, but I suppose it gets the point across. In the book and in some other adaptations, this scene is accompanied by an extended fantastical monologue from Anne in which she recounts a past cooking disaster triggered by a dramatic daydream about her own tragic demise. The result is a brilliant piece of situational irony. While Anne is completely caught up in her own theatrical musings, Diana is quietly drinking herself sick in the background. Sadly, the irony is lost in the anime, which skips over Anne's monologue entirely. Diana gleefully drowns tumblerfuls of currant wine, and meanwhile, I was mentally yelling, "No! Pace yourself! Eat something first!" Unfortunately, she did not have the benefit of going out to the orchard first and eating all those apples like in the book. Poor kid. The peeps joining me as I watched this episode all agreed that Diana was in for a very unpleasant morning. The events move quickly compared to the book, but the outcome is the same. The wine hits Diana almost immediately, and she goes home right away. Then, Mrs. Barry forbids Diana from ever seeing Anne again. Marilla attempts to explain the misunderstanding, but Mrs. Barry is just not having it. Upon hearing this, Anne rushes to Diana's house herself. In the book, Anne had been initially afraid to confront Mrs. Barry and had asked Marilla to go in her stead, which Marilla does. But the thought of losing Diana forever gives her the courage to make one final appeal. She knocks at the door and delivers her most heartfelt apology yet. And the book says that her speech, which would have softened good Mrs. Lynde's heart, does the exact opposite here. Had no effect on Mrs. Barry except to irritate her more. She was suspicious of Anne's big words and dramatic gestures and imagined that the child was actually making fun of her. Ironically, it's the one time Anne is genuinely remorseful over something, and yet she isn't believed. Anne managed to fool Rachel Lynde once upon a time with an over-the-top apology, but now when her remorse is real, her apology is rejected. It's a cruel bit of irony, yes, and a touch of poetic justice too. The book handles the aftermath of this scene a bit differently than we see it in the show. We see both Matthew and Marilla waiting for Anne outside in the rain, and Marilla goes to her and silently embraces her. In contrast, the book gives us a conversation in which Anne recounts her failed attempt to apologize to Mrs. Barry, and she says, "My last hope is gone. I went up and saw Mrs. Barry myself, and she treated me very insultingly, Marilla. I do not think she's a well-bred woman. There is nothing more to do except to pray, and I haven't much hope that that'll do much good because, Marilla, I do not believe that God himself can do very much with such an obstinate person as Mrs. Barry." "Anne, you shouldn't say such things," rebuked Marilla, striving to overcome that unholy tendency to laughter, which she was dismayed to find growing upon her. And indeed, when she told the whole story to Matthew that night, she did laugh heartily over Anne's tribulations. This might be a bit of a controversial take, but I actually prefer the anime's portrayal better. I've said it before that Anne's silences are just as important as her chatter, and here the lack of words spoken by either her or the Cuthberts underscores her grief more powerfully than dialogue could. Anne's despair is so deep, so total, that there's no words for it. That said, as a Marilla fan, I did miss that final scene of this chapter. When Marilla slipped into the east gable before going to bed and found that Anne had cried herself to sleep, an unaccustomed softness crept into her face. "Poor little soul," she murmured, lifting a loose curl of hair from the child's tear-stained face. Then she bent down and kissed the flushed cheek on the pillow. The episode really does a great job capturing Anne's heartbreak, showing Anne being shut out of the Barry house in the pouring rain, though I was initially afraid when she tried to barge in that she would be physically hurt. And later when Mrs. Barry shoved her out, I thought that the door had closed in on one of her braids. It was heart-wrenching to see, especially seeing her weeping as she walks home under the rain after she lost her dearest friend. The two girls are able to say goodbye in a scene that's both sorrowful and beautiful, with lines lifted almost word for word from the book. While a bunch of people might interpret this farewell as a romantic portrayal between two girls, I disagree. I see it as a deeply earnest portrayal of intense childhood friendship. Ellen Montgomery strikes a beautiful balance in this farewell, preventing it from becoming overwhelmingly tragic. In the book, when Anne goes home to Marilla, she informs her, "Diana gave me a lock of her hair and I'm going to sew it up in a little bag and wear it around my neck all my life. Please see that it is buried with me, for I don't believe I'll live very long. Then perhaps when she sees me lying cold and dead before her, Mrs. Barry may feel remorse for what she has done and will let Diana come to my funeral." An unexpected result of this fiasco is that Anne returns to school because it's the only way that she can be near Diana again. Her classmates welcome her back warmly, and although she and Diana are forbidden from speaking, they exchange notes and share knowing smiles across the room. As the days pass, Anne's academic rivalry with Gilbert also reignites. She still refuses to say his name, yet she can't help referencing him before catching herself. Gilbert, for his part, remains a good sport, clearly viewing Anne as a worthy rival and cheering for her during her wins, even when she gives him the cold shoulder. Speaking of Gilbert, the anime skipped a little fun detail where Anne received all sorts of gifts from her friends, but one was skipped. The girls were not the only scholars who appreciated her. When Anne went to her seat after dinner hour, she had been told by Mr. Phillips to sit with the model Minnie Andrews. She found on her desk a big, luscious strawberry apple. Anne caught it up, all ready to take a bite, when she remembered that the only place in Avonlea where strawberry apples grew was in the old Blythe orchard on the other side of the Lake of Shining Waters. Anne dropped the apple as if it were a red-hot coal and ostentatiously wiped her fingers on her handkerchief. Gosh, Anne, really? But just as the rift with Diana seems irreparable, fate, it appears, seems to intervene. Anne and Matthew are having a cozy time at home, during an evening when a lot of the townfolk, including Marilla and Diana's parents, have gone to the big city for some event. In the book, Anne is chattering away when she's supposed to be doing her homework, when a panicked Diana knocks at the door. Her younger sister Minnie May has fallen gravely ill with croup and she needs their help. Upon hearing this, Matthew wordlessly goes to get the doctor while Anne runs up to Diana's house to see Minnie May's condition, confirming that, yes, she has the croup. Looking more closely into the illness, I learned that what was referred to as the croup may have actually been diphtheria, a disease that blocks the airway due to a thick gray membrane of dead cells lining the throat. So, inducing vomiting, as Anne does with the ipecac, helps to dislodge the blockage and would allow the patient to breathe again. The doctor took a long time to get there, so Anne had to take full control of the situation. Drawing on her experience caring for children in her previous homes, Anne nurses Minnie May through the night with impressive competence. When the doctor arrives, he is utterly stunned, telling Diana's parents later on that if it hadn't been for her, Minnie May would not have survived. This, of course, leads to Mrs. Barry, who is humbled and grateful, to totally forgive Anne. At the news the next day, Anne runs straight to Diana's house. The reconciliation is deeply heartwarming. There they finally get to have their long-awaited tea party, thankfully with no raspberry cordial or currant wine involved. According to the book, Diana's parents used the finest china for the occasion, and the girls attempted to make taffy, which they, of course, ruined. And overall had a delightful afternoon that helped wash away the sadness of their separation. The episode closes with a cute little scene. Anne is tucked into bed, and she quietly reads a line of poetry gifted to her by Diana that says, "If you love me as I love you, nothing but death can part us two." It's a moment that is almost unbearably sweet and is filled with earnest devotion. While some modern viewers might interpret the intensity of their bond as romantic, again, I view it as a deeply affectionate childhood friendship, one rooted in the emotional openness of that era. After all, Diana is believed to have been inspired by Ellen Montgomery's real-life friend, Laura Pritchard. Their enduring friendship, even after they moved far away from each other, mirrors the connection between Anne and Diana. Montgomery, a prolific and expressive letter writer, often used heartfelt prose to sustain close relationships. In an era without texting or FaceTime, big words and dramatic gestures, they weren't excessive, they were necessary. what we might call cheesy or overly sentimental, well, to them was just the most sincere way to express love between friends. Despite it feeling a bit rushed, this episode still somehow managed to deliver a well-calibrated blend of comedy and pathos. Anne continues to steal the spotlight with her trademark flair, equal parts theatrical, earnest, and spirited. Anne and Diana's friendship continues to be one of the most tender and affectionate portrayals of friendship in an anime that I've seen in a while. While at first glance it may seem like Anne is the driving force behind their bond, this episode makes it clear that the affection goes both ways. Diana is just as devoted, just as emotionally invested, and even in their forced separation, her loyalty never wavers. It's deeply satisfying to see Anne, who has so long yearned for a true connection, to find a friend who wholeheartedly reciprocates her love and loyalty. Even with its brisk pacing, this adaptation is faithful to the original source material's emotional depth and still offers small yet poignant moments that resonate with us. This is done thanks in large part to Anne, who is far more than just a spirited chaos gremlin. She may be theatrical and dramatic, but this episode also presents her as a heroine with remarkable moral courage. She is very capable and meets life's trials with bravery and determination, as shown so clearly in her care for Minnie May when none of the adults were around to help. It's Anne's spirit that truly makes this adaptation, and just knowing that it'll cover the first 3 books of the series makes me cheer because I'm positive that they will do full justice to it. But anyway, let me know what you thought about this, and if there's anything from the book that I have missed and you think I should have mentioned, do comment. Join me for the next episode when we continue following Anne's story. Until then, bye bye.